At the end of a mine shaft, Lee Tae-chun shines a torch on a terrible secret. The remains of more than 3,500 civilians executed for being suspected socialist or leftist sympathizers. This is just one of 160 known mass graves across South Korea, containing the remains of tens of thousands of massacred civilians.
Following the surrender of Japan, which ended World War II, the U.S. occupation plucked a Syngman Rhee, who had lived in the U.S. for decades. He was a fervent Christian and anti-communist and would lead the U.S. Army military government in Korea. He would use his newfound powers to imprison at least 30,000 people. On top of that, he'd establish an official re-education program for suspected leftists and sympathizers, which included up to 300,000 people. The National Rehabilitation and Guidance League, known as the Bodo League, mandated as official policy that left-wingers and communists had to join in order for the government to keep track of them. It was reportedly modeled after the Japanese internment and re-education system during their occupation of Korea. It's known now that the vast majority of Bodo League members were not in fact leftists or even liberals, but placed into the program to fill local police quotas. Up to 70% of them were non-political, just very poor. In what's been called by Korean authors as the Summer of Terror, South Korean forces emptied prisons across the country, then lined up the detainees and shot them individually in the head. Victims were then thrown into mass graves, dumped into mine shafts, or tossed into the ocean. It is believed that 30,000 political prisoners were killed at the time, virtually all of them, since that was approximately the number of political prisoners that existed at the time. In one single incident, on July 2nd, truckloads of police entered Daejeon and forced locals to dig 6 large pits, each 200 yards long. Then detainees from the local Daejeon prison were transported in trucks to the pits, where they'd be slaughtered, mostly with bullets to the head and having their heads chopped off with swords. Bodies were densely packed into the pits. The South Koreans took 3 days to kill all the prisoners, 7,000 in all. Americans were present, supervised the killings, and even took pictures of the atrocity, which were kept secret for half a century. The Americans were present at many of these massacres, making it a matter of policy to keep them secret, so they blamed the killings on communists. The Pentagon even subsidized a film called The Crime of Korea, narrated by Humphrey Bogart, telling their story of what happened at Daejeon.
These men, women, and children were not killed accidentally in the heat of battle. They were murdered to warn the survivors that if you didn't let the communist monster swallow you alive, he'd rather have you dead.
The mass murders were part of a broader effort aimed at killing virtually all Korean leftists. Those identified through their membership to the Bodo League were hunted down, not only in prisons, but in their homes. They would often dig their own graves and be shot by the hundreds, even thousands.
The method of execution was almost always the same.
The way the remains lie underground show that the victims must have knelt down with their hands tied behind them at the edge of a long ditch before being shot dead.
These killings remained hidden away due to suppression, as well as fear of speaking out against the right-wing dictatorships of post-war Korea. They would be exposed to the world through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission set up by South Korea in 2005.
South Korean investigators have been exhuming mass graves and taking testimony as part of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
The commission would be modeled after the one South Africa created following apartheid.
Conservatives attacked us ideologically, slandering our work as leftist offensive on the right.
South Korean historian Kim Dong-chun was appointed to lead the subcommittee on, quote, mass civilian sacrifice. Kim believes that an estimate of 100,000 people killed in the summer of 1950 is, quote, very conservative, and that it's likely double that, or even more, comprising up to 2/3 of the total membership of the Bodo League.